Very warm welcome. Good afternoon, good morning to our friends in the United States. This is Astrato Live, April, together with myself, Martin Mahler. We have Alexander Thor on the top left on my screen, Joe Worthington with a fancy snowflake t-shirt, something happening behind the scenes that I'm not aware of, and Joe Bickley, our head of product for Astrato. Today is yet another session, very dynamic, informal. I like it when I can move around and it cannot be cut out. Hopefully we can, we're very good at our reducing our ums, and so on. So I think we're pretty fun when it comes to that. Today I want to show you, latest and greatest on Astrato, what we've been working on the product, some exciting news, and some other stuff, and the roadmap, of course. As you see, the crew here is growing. They're slowly pushing me out. Martin, you talk too much. Let us do the drill. So I'm going to be more in the background of the list. Something cool I want to show you. I'm really excited about. And those of you who have known us from VisLib times are pretty much probably will be impressed. So I'm excited to show you, but I'll be later on. So coolio. As always, please do make sure you ask questions in LinkedIn Live. We're going to be there directly with you as well. And yeah, we want to make this conversational, exciting, and interactive. So wonderful. Speak to you, and I'll tune in shortly again. I think it's over to you, Joe, right? I think you're ready to start.
I'll take some folks through a big feature here called Galaxy. And Galaxy is our community. So I'm going to share my screen here. What I find often is you're working on some dashboard, you're doing some stuff, but you want to jazz it up a bit more. You need to find inspiration. That's often through a community. And luckily, we just launched this. It's called Astrato Galaxy. The easiest way to get to it, let's say you're working in your dashboard here, hop back to the lobby, and you have this nice handy link called Community. It showed up just a few weeks ago. When you launch into that, it takes you over to community.astrato.io, which you can always get to bookmark. And Astrato Galaxy is our online community. We started seeding it with some content that we've built. We've pulled in some VisLib legends, and people have started participating in some challenges that I'll touch on as well. And they're sharing all the great stuff they're doing. They're also asking questions. They're putting in feature requests, which is a great way to submit any things that you would like to see improved in the product or added from scratch. So you can go in. Johan here really wants image boxes, so people are voting on this, and our team is currently collecting insights on this so we can release a new great feature. So feature requests are here as well, where you can go vote on things. But if I go to one of these posts here, this is the type of content you can see from, say, Emily. This is all about why you should join Astrato Galaxy. It's our network where we're creating leaders in cloud native BI. We're trying to bring people in here to share their feedback and content on why they like to use Snowflake or how they're using Astrato, these different things. You can learn from and inspire others. You get your say. Like I said, you can vote on ideas. And we run our little competitions as well. So if we check out that homepage, actually see Lee's over here is Astratonaut of the Month. There's an all-time leaders board as well. Joham's making a pretty good rush. You can click on people's names and you can see badges that they've earned. These badges are things that we issue for participating in the community, but also for completing training, say for your Astrato Essentials course, or for participating in the data DNA challenges that we've recently started running each month. This one in April is all around F1. And we're working with our partners over at Onyx Data to give you access to this data set directly in Astrato. And you can start building an F1 dashboard and submit it to win a prize. In this case, $200 Amazon voucher. And people are sharing their work in Galaxy under inspiration. So this is the category I'm really hoping expands and just takes off. So we'll grab something like, let's see here, Johan, right? We'll pick on him for a little bit. He submitted this workbook that he created with Astrato and shared it here. People are also able to embed the workbooks, and that was a recent thing. So you might see Emily's dashboard here for F1. that, oh, sorry, scroll on me. She's got a screenshot, but it also is live and embedded in the site, so you can interact with it. And this is showing off what's possible here with the Galaxy and Astrato embeds. So go try things out, get inspired from Astrato Galaxy, and we hope you had fun with it. We're going to continue to make updates here, get some more courses in there for Snowflake and the such. But Galaxy, again, really easy to get to. Just go to community from the lobby. Sound good? Questions? I'll be here in the background. I'll hand it back over to Alex.
Oh, thank you very much, Joe. So have you guys, what was the last kind of decision on? Is it Astronauts? Is it Astroneers? Or what's the
Astronauts.
Astronauts? Okay.
I've typed in Astrato and
Astronauts.
Astronauts so
Okay,
much that now autocorrect will correct things like the true astronaut spelling to astronauts. So it's catching on.
Okay.
We're starting. I just saw a couple of the new merchandise that we're working on as well. So we'll get some cool stuff out to people participating in Galaxy as well.
Very nice. Very nice. So I'll take you through a few of the updates that we want to show you guys today. We'll focus in on some smaller changes and some bigger changes. So bear with me, because you guys, you know, we're live, and the demos of Ghosts is always real. So we're hoping for the best today, but we'll see. So for the rest of the panelists, just give me a shout here if the demo is not working or coming across as it should, because I do not longer see the streaming screen. So today, we're happy to announce that, you know, in addition to supporting Google Sheets and supporting Snowflake, you can come into the software today, and now you can also start analyzing data that resides inside of Postgres. So Postgres as a data source is perhaps not as performant as something like Snowflake, but for smaller data sets and perhaps a little bit more static data sets, these are, you know, a very high contender and a very cost-efficient contender for being a very good data source to analyze on top of. And you know, the process that you're used to doesn't really change that much. So in this case, I've already connected up to a Postgres data source, so I can come in here and say I want to create a new data view on top of this one. And now we hope everything is with me. Looks so awesome. So in this data source, I have 4 different tables. We have some data sources, we have some data views, we have some users, and we have some workbooks. So this is basically the data that we have produced on our internal tenant over here at Astrato. So we can pull in, for example, the users table, and we can pull in, for example, the workbook table. And you know, this is the same process as you would if you're analyzing something like Google Sheets, or if you're analyzing data that resides inside of Snowflake. So you learn the UI once, and you can apply it across multiple different data sources. We can move on to defining this, and in typical Astrato fashion, we can join up some fields. So for example, the ID of the user should come into the owner ID of the workbook. Oh, there we go. The first demo ghost of the day. Anyways, so from here, we can go ahead and actually start creating a workbook. And let it think a little bit. We'll perhaps name it Astrato Live, not Love, even though that still works. And we can just start with a blank template. And from here, perhaps we can add something like a table. And from this table, we should now be able to start querying our different data that actually resides inside of Postgres. So in this case, we have our users table, we have our workbooks table. So perhaps we can have something like pull in created as a dimension, and maybe we can add something like the name of a workbook, for example. And we have data coming back from Postgres in real time. So we're super happy about adding one of the first new data sources that we're looking to support. So as we're continuing on with very, very high focus on top of Snowflake, we're always looking to widen the support of which types of data sources that you can analyze. So Postgres being one of the first ones. So that was a short intro to like how you can get some Postgres data up and running. And after that, you know, from here, it's the same experience that you're used to. So we can come back to the lobby from now. And I wanted to focus in on like we're also not only shipping very, very big features, we're also like to ship smaller features. So one of the things that some of our customers have, I shouldn't say complain about, but asked for improvements upon, has been the people section or the user section. So when you had a lot of different users, it was quite hard to navigate or find your different users in there to manage things like roles or being able to invite or resend invitations. So as a first step, and this is something that we're wildly approving upon as well, is that we're slowly adding in normal things like paging, but also small things like being able to sort on different columns and so on and so forth. So this is one of the first iterations. We're hoping to see additional things coming in here in the next couple of sprints. So if you come in now, this is how it will look. If you come in 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, it will have even more features coming in here as well. So in addition to enhancements on the people section, we've also given you a little bit more flexibility when it comes to working with embeds. So embed links was something that we shipped a while back. So the ability to take any type of visualization inside of Astrato, generate sort of a deep link or a direct link to that, either visualization, group of visualizations, or a full sheet. And then link that somewhere else. You could send it across as a Slack message, or you can embed it inside of a third-party software, things like Jira or Confluence or Notion or Observable or whatever, you name it, basically. We've given you a little bit of more flexibility and control when it comes to embed links. So if you come into the administration section and then embed links, you'll see all of the different links that has been generated in the system so that you actually can keep track of them. But now you also have things like an allow list. So perhaps you wouldn't want to have, your users, you don't want to give them the ability to generate links for any type of system. And then somebody comes along and embeds it on BBC and it will crash your server, for example. So we've given you the ability to lock this down so that you can put in a number of hosts that will be allowed to actually display embedded content. So that you get a little bit of governance and control around which type of applications and which types of websites are actually allowed to showcase your information from Astrato. And in addition to this, we've also shipped the ability to turn on or turn off the possibility of generating links that doesn't require authorization or authentication. So for some customers, and this is of course only available for administrators to toggle on or toggle off, but for some customers, they want to be able to, they have a large user base, they want to be able to control their data and making sure that nothing actually leaves the realm of their company. So now you have the ability to come in and also disable external links totally from the system. So that was a slight update on embed links. From here, let's see if I can switch screens quickly. We also have we're shipping this fairly soon, hopefully by the next release window from us, which is in about 2 weeks. The ability to white label Astrato, or theme the lobby of Astrato. So we love the color palette of Astrato, and we do think that is the best one out there. But we recognize the fact that adoption is one of the key kind of blockers for delivering a successful analytic project. And tool fatigue is becoming like a real thing. You don't want to have to learn yet another tool. And especially if you have a lot of semi-casual users, perhaps you wanted to give them a interface that looks slightly as the different types of tools that you're used to working with. So we're giving you the ability to theme the lobby so that it can, behave and look like your own corporate colors. You can upload your own logo. You can pick and choose the different colors in there if you want to. And of course, we also ship a few default themes that we also think looks quite nice, being the Astrato default theme, of course, watermelon, summer. You get a few high contrast themes if you want to work with those as well. So this will ship fairly soon. And on the right-hand side here, you also see some examples on how it can look like. And of course, you always get the flexibility of just tweaking, for example, the dominant and the primary color. Or if you just wanted to, change the button color because you don't like how the buttons look, for example. All of this will be available to your Astrato instance fairly soon. If you want it a little bit ahead of time, feel free to reach out, and we can always include you in the early access program. And yeah, that's it from Mr. Thor today. We'll see if we have Martin Mahler coming back in here.
Yeah, I'm here.
Awesome.
Thank
And
you,
I think
Alex.
you're also gonna. Are you also gonna suffer from the demo ghosts today, or you're all good?
No demo goes. I'm
No
prepared.
demo ghosts today. Okay. So I'll hand over the show to you, Mr. Showman.
And I find it quite exciting, the white labeling piece, which is it seems like a very simple capability, a feature, the ability to style, color, and change the tenant to look how your app looks like. But that's always the first thing I'm doing anytime within VisLib we're purchasing software, typically SaaS products. First thing I go, I put in the VisLib logo somewhere, the Astrato logo, and then change the colors to be familiar, and it almost feels like one unified experience. So yeah.
And I would say this is just the first step for us, right? So all of us internally at Astrada has been delivering analytics projects in different shapes or forms over the last, decade, or up and even, even 2 decades if you're really old. So for us, we recognize the fact that we're always struggling with getting people to use their software, right? And some of the most successful software projects that I've seen rolling out software internally at enterprises is where you actually treat it as a brand, right? You give it a brand identity, you give it a name, you put a real identity on collateral, you even theme things like knowledge paper, the help center. So we're hoping in the future to always expand on this, and perhaps we're even seeing things like being able to upload your own educational materials and so on and so forth that you want to be able to distribute to your users.
Cool.
So yeah, stay tuned.
One question I have to the crowd, because that's a debate we're having inside. So having the ability to perhaps also relabel different items. So we are calling, for example, the lobby and then the assets within the lobby workbooks. Would you be interested to have the ability to change the name to be, something else, apps, or something that you called something internally? That's something we're debating. I would love to have your input. I can presume you guys can see my screen. So I'm going to talk about different topics now, going a little bit away from white labeling to perhaps the more of the data side. You all are familiar with Astrata and the experience of joining a data view, basically in this case, the Snowflake instance, and browsing through the data to be able to select the data for analysis. Very, very flexible and business friendly user interface. And by the way, I found it quite exciting when Alex showed the Postgres database support. Which is, again, for us, a very important factor, that no matter what the data connection is behind the scenes, the user experience will remain similar and the same. So this is, our user interface for selecting data. But before I go into the data model itself, I have the ability not just to define the last mile analysis, define dimensions, measures, formatting, but the most important part are the joins. How does my table relate to the other remaining tables in my data schema, in my database, in my data view? And how do they link with each other? Because analytics is rarely just one table at a time. It is, I want to see products, I want to see sales by products, or I want to see sales by territory. I want to see number of products by territory. So it's always these little jumps. And what we've done here is very, very nicely is we want to reduce reduce the complexity of defining those joins into what we call joint suggestions. So that's already in place. But the thing is, and if you're more technically, if you're a data engineer or more technically experienced, you will see that not every join that we're suggesting are necessarily equal of the quality. So what we have here is we have the ability to define and measure the join quality of a proposed join. So you'll have the ability to, or perhaps let me go back into the define select section, select a little bit more data, so it becomes a bit more interesting. So I will select also the calendar, the customer tables. I have a couple of more options, so just one or two. And yeah, go back into the define section. Cool. So obviously now I have more tables, so our algorithm is suggesting more joins. And I can either apply them all, but sometimes, I don't know what I'm really doing here. So what you can do now very, very soon in the next sprint release actually, you'll be able to select the suggested joins and examine the join quality. So what is happening now behind the scenes is that we're looking at the different field names, and we're looking on how many records do they have between the master and the detail table, and provide you with additional information of the key quality. So as you see here, this join suggestion sales territory key between geography and sales was classified as bad because there are a lot of orphan, there's little key quality. As such, this is not something I would want to select. However, on the other side, geography, sales territory key and territory field, that is a great suggestion because it does have 100% key quality on the master table. It's a bit technical, but that's what we're trying to do. Remove the technical complexity to keep it very simple for you to just, check the quality and apply it and define the join and join direction without having to know any SQL whatsoever. So that is a very great advancement that we're doing in the area of data views. Other than that, now moving closer a little bit to the business side, that's where, in my view, the biggest fun part resides. So you're all familiar with all the various possibilities of analytics that you can create using Astrato. So this is a great example with paid ads. As always, very interactive, very insightful, and can become extremely powerful when shared with a lot of users within an organization. Same also, when it comes to support tickets. But one thing that has always bothered me in the history of data analytics, and that is changing, the need is changing, is that it's read only. I can only analyze the data that already exists there, but I cannot input on it. I cannot action on it. I cannot do something operational to interfere, to improve, to ultimately act on the insights that I'm seeing here. And that results from commenting, but more importantly, this is where we're capturing the key term writeback. So what we're doing with Astrato, enabled by Live Query, is that we are now introducing writeback into Astrato as part of the product. So let me create a new workbook from scratch. So you see a little bit the very basic use case, and then an interesting one. So I have a writeback data view. In essence, I need to make sure I have the right permissions defined in Snowflake, but that's very easy to do. And if I come here, I can see that my data view has a writeback table selected. So this is a table within Snowflake where I can insert values. And I'm using that now as my baseline. And if I come in here, I'll have the ability to introduce a new field, which is called the input form. If you cannot see it, please email us. We're currently feature flagging it, but it's already available. I will be able to add it into the screen and now defined input fields. Now, before I do that, let me perhaps show you the country field as an example. So in my data set that I have a list of countries. And I now have a use case where, perhaps very simply, I want to add another country to the mix. So this input field here supports the ability to choose the same table where I have write access to, and select country, and now will give me the ability to input a new record. So I can come here, by the way, to change save and load, and I can come in here and I can say, well, we have Spain, Singapore, Sweden. I think I am missing perhaps Denmark. No, let's perhaps add, okay, Israel. That's a new country I want to add to the mix. So you now have the ability to save that record, and it is now appearing as part of my data. Now, it seems like this is a very simple minor use case, but it basically opens up now analytics to become a two-way street to finally close the analytics loop, to be able to enter, modify, and insert data commentary directly from the dashboard itself. Now, this is a very simple input form. It can be expanded with multiple fields. If you want to add more than just country, you may want to add multiple values in one go. And if you do it, in a nice way, and you build a use case, you can create a really interesting app, such as this one here. So this is my sales inventory application where basically I get analytics on top of the data that is being inserted by various users. And now let's say I am one of those salespeople where I have to record my sales record here to become part of the model. And I can say that today I've sold a live LinkedIn webinar. I've sold one of it, and the sales amount is, let's say, that was $1,000, and it was shipped. So now I save this, and basically it becomes part of the data, and everybody else looking at it will see their numbers being updated, and they can see everything at the same time and in real time. So Writeback enabled by us using the input form, and this is now, a very, very interesting capability that opens up the universe of possibilities to turn data analytics or dashboards into effectively data apps. And one cool feature I want to show you, or capability, is that you can combine this with embeddability. So what Alex has shown, where you can right click on the screen, you can actually embed the whole sheet. So ultimately you can take this kind of app and now integrate it as part of your Confluence page, or as part of Salesforce, HubSpot, and ultimately use it wherever you want it. Bring the data to where the flow is, and the input form to support a bidirectional analytics experience. So that's from my side, and this is available today already, feature flagged, but get excited. So if you're interested in using that, give us a flag and we will activate it for you. Other than that, it will be made available, I think very, very shortly. We want to tweak in some little things here and there to make sure it's universally working. Thank you for that. So handing over to perhaps Joe now, who will be wrapping up with some of exciting stuff that he has been working on, as well as the updated roadmap.
Awesome. Thank you, Martin. So I'm going to go ahead and share my desktop as well. Hopefully that's coming through for everybody. Okay, so what I'm going to show is 3 new capabilities we've added to be able to color the charts that you create in your dashboards. And this is the first of the set of features we're delivering in this area. And the main aim here is so that you can highlight particular values, whether that's the output of measures, whether that's dimension values, or also color by dimensions as well. So let me dive into this. So again, I'm going to use the Formula One data set that we're working on at the moment. So I have here the career points earned by all of the Formula One drivers. And I'm not going to get into any debates about who the best driver is, because this chart is very clear. But what I'm going to do is I want to be able to highlight a specific driver in this list. And maybe when I have multiple visualizations, I might want to follow a specific dimension or a specific driver across multiple dimensions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a highlight for a particular value. So what I'm going to do is I want to focus in on, say, Nico Rosberg. And I want Nico Rosberg to always show in red. So by simply applying a highlight to that dimension value, Nico Rosberg now shows up immediately in a different color. So that helps when you're trying to track things across potentially multiple sheets in application, or whether you're checking across different expressions and measures, so that you can always track the same person, or where you want to focus in on one thing. The other thing you can now do as well is apply color rules so that you can evaluate a given metric and change the color based on a metric. So let's, for example, in this case, I'm going to use it on the same chart. I want to highlight using a rule where anyone who scored more than 2,000 points across their career, and I want to change their color to be, let's go with this interesting teal color, shall we? And there we go. So we now quickly and easily highlighted the 2 most successful point scorers. And these are all evaluated on the fly. So for example, if I start drilling into a particular season, what I should see is, because you can't score that many points in a season, you should see, for example, the highlighting of those top 2 drivers come off the chart, as you see now, because they'd only scored so many points during that season. But if I looked at other seasons, so if I went back a little further in time, pick on 2016, I might start to see Nico Rosberg highlighted again because he did drive in that season, so he gets highlighted. So really straightforward way to apply color highlighting to particular values. So the next coloring feature I'm going to show is applying coloring by category or dimension values. So what I have in my chart on the right-hand side here is the number of points the constructors all scored in 2020. So again, what I can do here when I'm applying my coloring is I can have it in single color mode as I have currently, or I can choose to define it by categorical colors. Now, by default, it'll use one of our regular palettes and every value will get a different color. But what I can now also do is override the dimension that's used for color. And maybe this time I'm going to focus on the nationality of the team. So by using a different dimension value, I'm able to highlight that these two green teams here, they're the British-based teams. I have my two Italian-based teams here in green. So I can start to apply different types of effectively groupings using color as well as the sort order in the chart as well. So two really great capabilities to help highlight particular data values in your visualizations. I'm focused on bar charts in this example, but of course this applies to other visualizations in the product as well. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen and we're going to cut back to the slides and we're going to talk a bit about roadmap. All right, so if we can advance the slides, that would be great. All right, so I've got the roadmap split into 4 key areas and we're going to drill into a little bit of detail on each of them. So starting off with the authoring workflow. So if you've caught one of these sessions before, you'll see many of the items kind of quite quickly move to the left. The durations in our roadmap, anything short term means we're almost releasing it. It's kind of work that's very much in progress. Medium terms, kind of weeks, and then longer terms in the coming months. So generally speaking, pretty short term on the roadmap overall. So around authoring workflow, what we're doing at the moment, following on from our embedding work, is giving you the ability to lock the ratio of the sheets. Currently, we're fully responsive, and there's some cases where you want to be very specific on locking that ratio when you want to use it in different locations. So we're going to add that capability in to allow you to be very specific and pin sharp on your layout of objects. Moving on from that, where we're focusing around the authoring workflows are 2 kind of really significant areas. One is around how we allow customers to build kind of more interactive data-driven applications. And by that, what I mean is you're able to have actions and logic apply to parts of your workbook. So for example, maybe you require a user to select a particular value before showing a chart. Or if you click on a certain item or a button that you want to show them a particular sheet or action. So we're building in a lot of capabilities to allow you to have all of those controls and events and logic. And we're doing that in a very straightforward way using some really great technologies that will keep it as a low-code essentially approach or a no-code approach to implementing really interactive data-driven workbooks. Along with that will come a number of other things like variables, so you're able to store values along the way. And then secondly, around the workbooks, giving you the ability to theme them and also apply basic versioning control so that you're able to go back to previous versions if you make a mistake and so on. Longer term, we'll be adding more capabilities around sharing. So when you're building assets that you want to reuse, how do you share those kind of resources, and giving you more configurability around how you work with sheets, whether they're scrollable, different sizes to suit different use cases. And again, we'll keep adding lots of other incremental and customer-driven feedback as well along the way. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, on the platform side, so one of the biggest things we're focusing on here is around Snowflake pass-through authentication. This is so that we can allow an individual user's credentials to be used during their connection to Snowflake. That opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of allowing, for example, a specific sales rep to only see the data that's relevant to them. So that's going to be a really important capability to include, and we're looking forward to getting that out very soon. Lobby theming, as Alex already demonstrated, so I won't touch on that again, but again, really helping to have customers brand their projects the way they want to see them. We have some exporting capabilities, so we, as ever, you always want people to stay in their analytics tool, but exporting to Excel is still something that often users still try to do, that almost last part of the last mile type analysis. So we're adding exporting and also exporting to PDFs as well. And then from there, a lot more focus on authentication, both in terms of the providers that we support for authentication in the product, but then also looking at authorization and how we can allow users to have more advanced permissions and control over artifacts within the product. Okay, next slide. We have 2 to go, I think. Okay, so on the visualization side, Martin gave you a run through of the input form and input fields.
So before we go ahead here, Joe, right?
Okay.
Now we need to settle the debate, right? Have you spelled visualizations right or wrong?
I have spelled it correctly because I am English.
Okay. Yeah, just want to make sure.
I'm going to vote against it, but that's okay.
Interestingly, I did change it from a Z earlier on. I apologize if I've broken corporate convention. So yes, Martin went through input form. So this is our first part of our Writeback capabilities. Really excited about that. On some of the other visualization side, so we have our pivot table coming up very soon, making lots of great progress on adding that capability into the product. We're also adding some really simple ways to work with dates in the product. So often you may be lucky in your data set to have year, month, day broken out in separate fields, but often you just get the date. And so we're adding in the capabilities to say, if you've got dates, change the way you group so that you can automatically group by month in your visualizations without having to create new fields. So really simple to use, but really, really powerful for your visualizations. Moving on from that, looking at more filtering controls, whether that's selections in the charts themselves, whether it's applying additional measure level filters, such as if you want to see, who's sold more than $100 worth of a particular product, for example. And also looking at capabilities like time travel, where we are able to use some of the capabilities in the underlying data warehouse to look back at how data was in previous snapshots of the data. Enabling a couple of really interesting use cases to see changes over a period of time. And then longer term, we're always interested to hear feedback on what you need from the visualizations, whether it's entirely new visualizations or whether it's depth of functionality in visualizations as well. So we're always focused on this area, leveraging all of the expertise we have in the organization already. And then onto the final slide from me. Which is data workflow. So Martin showed off a couple of the little improvements we're making in the data load experience around joins. We're making a number of incremental things here because we see that as a real strong point for us to be able to work quite quickly with data within the early parts of developing a data experience for users. So what we're starting with is more advanced measures in the data view part of the product, so that you can define globally reusable measures as part of your data view that can be used in any workbooks you create from them, and also supporting that in the UI in the dashboarding side as well. We're then moving on to more capabilities on the data side around really a focus on rapid data exploration. So what this is really focusing on is how do we allow users to start understanding their data before they start building a dashboard. So as soon as I've connected and chosen and joined my tables, let me explore what that data is containing, what it's going to tell me, what I can use it for. Where do I need to maybe add in some more data? Where do I need to create a measure to be able to reuse in my application? And I think this is really, really powerful because it gives us that ability to do that without having to write SQL as the starting point in that experience. And then moving on from that, lots of work happening in terms of how we handle changes in the underlying data warehouse or removing connections and how we handle that changes in the product. looking at data lineage and where data is being used within the Astrato platform. And then looking forward from that, more on profiling data. And also, Martin showed the first pieces of Writeback today, and we're looking at enabling more and more use cases using that technology in the longer term as well. So quick run through of coloring and a quick run through of roadmap. I think we're pretty much ready to start taking some questions, unless anyone else has questions, any other points to add.
Really nice to follow. Thank you for that. I was hoping we had something to show on time travel, but we'll get there and we'll travel back. Wonderful. Thank you for having us, everyone. We're generally very, very excited working on those things step by step. And we have a great, ambitious roadmap for the Snowflake Summit in Las Vegas, which we'll be sponsoring and attending. So hopefully we'll see some of you over there. Joe, I'm pretty sure you've been monitoring comments. Do you think there's any question from the audience around the Astrato, the product, the vision about us?
Yeah.
Or anything else? We still have a couple of minutes.
I'm not sure there were any questions that necessarily came in, but there was little things when you're showing stuff. Theming, people are going to love that, I think. I've always wanted to do that. Just change out like a grayscale theme of whatever program you're working on and make it your own. And Postgres was getting big in there too, but I'm wearing my Snowflake shirt. I don't have a Postgres shirt. I don't even know who would send me one, but I'll take one if you are. And then the other thing is, it's super cool to see the roadmap that Joe showed, because there were some things on Galaxy that I shared that feature request for him that I'm seeing in there now. And so it's a great way for people to shout for the things that they want. And that stuff gets immediately sent to all the PMs and to Joe, so we can go review it and get the stuff in the product quickly. Good.
So when are we going to see the first kind of visualization from you, Joe, on like what percentage of your wardrobe is vendor and swag t-shirts?
Yeah, my wife makes me clean it out every once in a while, and I've color coded at one point, and then I have too many of the grays and the blacks, so I got to get rid of those. But I'll take an Astrato box. I know there's some new ones coming out. I'll gladly swap out. Questions coming in though. One here. Where do people reach out if they want to turn on that input form?
Alex, you would know that.
Yes. So absolute easiest is you can email me directly, and it's as simple as Alexander.Thor at Whitlab.com or at Astrato.io. Or the same goes for either Joe Bickley and Joe Warrington as well, and we'll make sure you guys get included into the initial release program.
Find you. Another one here, more data source related stuff, SQL Server, API integrations, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I can feel that as well, unless you want to go, Joe.
No, I was going to say, as you mentioned earlier, we're focusing very heavily on our Snowflake integrations currently. Postgres, I think, is a logical add, given the use of that tool across all kinds of different sectors and industries. So very interested to hear, feedback on what you're looking to achieve, whether it fits. We're also keen, obviously, as a cloud analytics tool, we want to make sure that we're really closely lined up with where the data is. And so, we're definitely looking to add additional ones over time, and feedback helps to drive that. I think with the comment on API integration, I think if that's about, are we expanding more kind of capabilities from the API side in the product, then yes, absolutely. Over time, we'll certainly get to that. We've built assuming that, we just haven't made those public yet. But the next logical step, embeds, is the first piece of really making that a simple way to kind of get content out and embedded into third-party systems, and then following from that, you want to get more tightly integrated, and we'll look to support those cases in the future.
Nice. And one that I saw on the forums in Galaxy last week that started getting a bit of attention, Martin, you actually responded to it too, and that was around ML, machine learning, and predictions and things like that. We talked about it, I think, before, of forecasting and how that fits in the charts, but this talking to other platforms that are doing ML, Python, notebooks, and stuff like that. Have you guys thought about where that fits in and what our stance is on that?
Well, I can just add a prelude, and then maybe the others can weigh in. But in general, I think it's important to highlight what a product does, but even more importantly, what it doesn't do. And we envision to focus on visualizations and presentation and interaction with data. What we don't want to do is be an aggregation calculation engine. What we don't want to do is perform machine learning AI models on top of an engine to produce insights. We may very well steer model parameters, which are coming from a user input from a dashboard, that then triggers a data IQ model, for example, that then we are able to present the data in a very nice, meaningful way. So we're not going to be doing those things. We rely on other third-party vendors to be supplementing us as part of a modern data stack, right? And that's, I think, where the industry is going, where you pick and match the best of breed for every kind of purpose, from data ingestion, data storage, AI workloads, to actually data presentation. And we're on the data presentation side.
So I would kind of add there, and I think it's also something that people forget about when it comes to ML and AI, and that is, it's not only about consumption. So Martin earlier showed us, for example, the input box and the ability to actually write data back. We have seen instances where you could use Astrato to actually have some data that you want to analyze, to isolate, for example, a cohort of data set, for example, and then be able to tag that cohort back into a data source to later be used inside of an ML process. Mm-hmm. Or for that matter, actually looking at some data to do some feature classification or feature tagging, and then being able to write that back again to be then later used downstream inside of an ML or an AI process, right? That you can later fold back into Astrato again if you wanted to. But I think that is a very, very, very interesting use case, because that tends to be the bottleneck and the very, very time-consuming effort of kind of just doing classification work. So being able to outsource that to multiple users through a tool like Astrato is a very, very interesting use case.
I really like that concept of Writeback too, because it can be scary when we say Writeback. People think you're going to go change the data from whatever system was captured in. But really, Writeback can be really powerful for that classification. So let's say the ML brought in, it says cohort A, cohort B, but you actually want to tag it as high-performing customers, this group, and using Writeback to capture that right there. You're not replacing that data, you're just augmenting it and classifying it in the dashboard for people to use it. That's really interesting. Another question just came through. Is there a way to get public access to dashboards? I can actually answer that one too. I just did that, and that's with embedding. So you can turn on your tenant inside of Astrato the ability to share publicly. You can whitelist websites that you can embed them. But if you go out to Galaxy, and I'll put this in the chat too, in the inspiration category that I showed, Emily and others have embedded their workbooks live, so you can go see them and play with them. So this is definitely possible today. We may just need to work with you to turn it on in your environment, Sanjit, and we have a step-by-step guide for that too. That's my major focus is I want to share this stuff outwardly, so it's not locked behind walls, if you're comfortable sharing the work, that is. So you have full control over whether it's public or not. Here's a little link to it too. I think that's it I'm seeing come in.
Cool. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for tuning in. I hope that was insightful. Try out the product. Stay tuned. Follow us on LinkedIn, on Twittergram. Twitter it is. And our newsletter as we continue innovating and adding some really, really cool things to Astrato. I think the Writeback piece is very, very revolutionary, enabled by live query. So looking forward to see how we can double down on that and what other use cases we can cover. So expect maybe a data competition around it. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, listening to us, and speak to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye all.